Good afternoon and welcome to the second annual Hearst Community Initiative Town Hall Speaker Series. My name is Evan Zislis. I'm the Director of Community Engagement for the Aspen Institute's Hearst Community Initiative. The work of HCI is focused on promoting dialogue, increasing understanding, and facilitating opportunities for meaningful collaboration among the communities of Aspen to Parachute, Colorado, located on ancestral lands of the Ute people. Today, I am zooming in from Aspen Institute's Opportunity Youth Forum Conference in sunny San Francisco, where I'm honored to represent Colorado among urban, rural, and tribal initiatives from across the country, working hard to innovate how we support the young adults of our respective communities. Today is the fourth event of an 8-part speaker series in a collaboration with the regional public libraries and chambers of commerce of Aspen, Basalt, Carbondale, Glenwood Springs, Newcastle, Silt, Rifle, and Parachute. Throughout the series, interested stakeholders will tune in to learn more about the issues facing our communities and the local experts working to find collaborative solutions to the shared challenges of our region. Today's topic is Re-Energizing Carbondale's Local Economy, co-hosted by the Carbondale Branch Library and the Carbondale Chamber of Commerce. Today's Zoom host is Garfield County Libraries, and interpretation to Spanish is brought to you by Velasco Language Services. For today's webinar, please use the chat feature for technical questions. I'll turn it over to Alex to give us more information.
Thank you, Evan. And if you just allow me a minute, I will share my screen to go over some housekeeping. As Evan mentioned, you can use the chat function to communicate briefly or quickly with our panelists or presenters, or if you have any technical issues. We are using a Zoom webinar, which means if you have any questions about the presentation or about the subject for our panelists today, please use the Q&A. That will save your question for an appropriate time for you to have it answered. And finally, we are presenting this in Spanish and English simultaneously. If you go to your Zoom options on the bottom right, you'll see a gridded globe icon. Please click on that and make sure to pick the language of your preference, English or Spanish. If you need any help with these functions, please type it into the chat and I will help you as soon as I can. Back to Evan.
Thanks, Alex. As Alex mentioned, you can ask questions for our panel using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll leave time at the end to answer as many questions as possible. We've got a lot of ground to cover, so I want to introduce our moderator and our esteemed panel for today's discussion. Director Pat Meyers is the Executive Director of the Colorado Office of Economic Development and International Trade and the Chief Economic Recovery Officer for the state of Colorado. In 2020, Pat was appointed the Constrained Medical Supply Team Leader for the state of Colorado's COVID Innovation Response Team. And starting in 2017, Pat served as Chief of Staff to Colorado Governor Hickenlooper. Prior to entering public service, Pat's career spanned between law, restaurants, and the U.S. Navy, with roles ranging from submariner to Special Assistant Attorney General to the owner of Smashburger and Quiznos. Pat graduated from the University of Colorado, Denver, and the University of California, Hastings School of Law. Luis Yllanes. Luis arrived with his family in the Roaring Fork Valley in 2009 to work at the Aspen Art Museum, where he was promoted up through the organization and left as their Chief Operating Officer. In 2022, he was appointed the Executive Director for Five Point Adventure Film Festival, bringing the popular gathering back to an in-person event after a 3-year hiatus. Luis has also served on Carbondale Town Council from August 2017 through April of 2022. Knowing how important the local economy is to the sustainability of a small town like Carbondale, Luis works to ensure all facets of the community are represented in the work that he does. Tamara Haynes-Norton. Tamara has been the cafe manager at Bonfire Coffee for the past 7 years. She has served in various capacities of the food and beverage industry for almost 20 years as a server, bartender, sommelier, and international trainer for large restaurant brands. She loves people, food, and science, and loves to talk about how the three come together. Brion After. Brion is a business owner and sporting goods and retail expert. He's the owner of Independence Run and Hike, Carbondale's outdoor and running store, which he opened in 2006. Brion's career started at the global sporting goods giant Adidas in Portland, Oregon, and included time at TaylorMade in San Diego, as well as managing the Ute Mountaineer in Aspen. Brion is originally from Rochester, New York, and now lives in Carbondale, where he is an avid runner, golfer, and outdoor enthusiast. Andrea Stewart. Andrea is the executive director of the Carbondale Chamber of Commerce with over 13 years of chamber experience. She graduated from the University of Wyoming with a degree in communication and a minor in marketing communication, as well as an associate degree in resort management and hospitality from Colorado Mountain College. She specializes in member relations and communications and proudly serves on a number of advisory councils and boards, including the Association of Colorado Chambers of Commerce as chair. Andrea has been recognized by the Small Business Development Center as an emerging business leader and was named Colorado Association of Commerce and Industries Chief Executive Director of the Year. We're honored to have everyone joining us today. And with that, I'll turn it over to Pat.
Thanks, Evan. Hopefully my audio is working okay. Nice to meet you sort of by Zoom. I think we're all getting a little tired of Zoom meetings, but it is what it is. I do want to just take a moment and note that Texas and the families are all in our thoughts and hearts, and anything that Colorado can do, we've reached out as a state to Texas and just wish them all as best as possible, I think. Thank you for inviting me to this. Evan shared some meaningful insights about the panelists and about Carbondale, and it's clear to me that there's just a very strong pride and passion in the place that you live and work, which doesn't surprise me at all. I grew up in Denver. I grew up going to the mountains, and I don't ski anymore, but I did at one time. So I have a lot of pride in both the state and all of our communities, both the Front Range and certainly the other parts of the state. And Carbondale is one of them. We know from both the state government side and particularly OEDIT, which is in the economic development business, that local economies are critical to the overall state economy. A lot of times, I think, in the past, people have sort of thought of the Front Range and not thought about the other parts of the state. And the other parts of the state are incredibly important to the success of this state. And so we applaud everything that you have done through the pandemic and before that. On the state side, we've identified 4 key priority areas for recovery, and that's workforce development, mental and behavioral health, affordable housing, and economic recovery, which is kind of a big broad bucket of what's broken that we can actually put some money into to try and fix. Just finished the legislative session and have some pretty great programs, I think, coming out of those. As long as they're executed well, they'll be pretty beneficial to the state. But you'll be hearing more about that as we get into July and start to implement. So with that, I think, first of all, this is a pretty informal setting, and I'm probably going to bounce around a little bit, and all of you panelists feel free to jump in, or however this plays out. I think I'll start with Andrea, just because the chamber is kind of a connective tool for all of you, and certainly we saw both OEDIT and our chambers go through a pretty monumental shift as we went into the pandemic, and now sort of shifting back again as we're starting to hopefully, touch wood, come out of the pandemic. So just wanted to get your perspective, Andrea, on what you saw happening within the chamber and the business community.
Sure. So I agree. We definitely saw a shift as we kind of turned to remote, and then also seeing that shift as we're coming back to more and more in person. But similar to this forum, we're also seeing people getting just more familiar and comfortable with whether it be a hybrid event or a remote event. So we as the Carbondale Chamber are continuing to do just some webinars such as this remote, just because we can really touch more people and in the business setting, but also, doing more and more in person with our networking. So a little bit of both. What we saw is that transition. The Carbondale Chamber, we're proud to report we're back to our 2019 Carbondale Chamber membership numbers. So we are kind of again using that re-energize terminology. We're seeing just the business community in general bouncing back in that capacity. We've also had a number of new businesses open since January, which is very exciting. But I will say in 2021, we had over 50 businesses join the chamber. So again, I thought it was a great opportunity to really pull up our bootstraps and put all of this work in motion of things that we've done, and just really doing what we can to reach out to our members and really, also the community to come together and to support one another. We launched a campaign in partnership with the Carbondale Creative District and Carbondale Arts called Love Local. And that was a really cool opportunity just to remind people, to get back to basics in regards to shopping local first. And we sold over $19,000 of Carbondale Chamber gift certificates, which I know some businesses on this call have used and redeemed, which is great. So again, it just keeps those dollars right here in our community. And I think, some of this is here to stay, but we're proud to report that I feel like we've bounced back better. So thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I read that prior to the pandemic, something like 2% of the state workforce worked remotely, and now it's like 45%. And that surveys, sort of more national surveys, but probably applies to Colorado as well, as saying that the workforce doesn't really want to come back into an office setting full time. They're okay with hybrid, but they really have learned to embrace being able to work from home or work from another location. Are you seeing that in Carbondale?
We're seeing that a lot. And for full transparency, I worked remotely yesterday. So I think that it really is helpful for that work-life balance and really, realigning those priorities. And, at the end of the day, I feel as if the work is getting done, that's what matters. But we're seeing a lot, whether it's, people relocating or maybe moving to Carbondale full-time or part-time. We're seeing a lot of people being able to work remotely and, continue again to be in Carbondale for the lifestyle. But businesses that I've talked to, not only in our community, but statewide, it's becoming more and more kind of universal. A lot of that topic is coming up in, current job postings of, is it an opportunity to work on a hybrid schedule? And I think that will be something that is here to stay. We'll see in the next, 3 to 5 years if that trend continues. And if you see more and more people turning to remote, or if people want to get back into the office and have that interaction. So I'll be interested to see, but I will say in short that yes, we are seeing that as a trend locally and regionally.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I want to shift over to Brion because you're in retail, and maybe talk a little bit about what you do, although probably most of the people on the phone know more than I do. Let's put it that way.
Well, I mean, talk about what I do. I own a retail sporting goods store, and we sell mostly. I always say we're the running store for the Valley and the outdoor store for Carbondale. And I have to say it's definitely been a bit of a wild ride for us. I mean, certainly being shut down and closed down for a period of time was probably the scariest time I've ever had in the store. And now, just to go off what Andrea was saying, is it seems like every day we have someone coming in who's either looking to move to Carbondale and just sort of wandering around town and checking things out, or has moved to Carbondale because they can now work remotely. And pop into the store. And, this is, to me, a store like mine, which is an outdoor running store is a great place to sort of get a feel and ask where the hikes are and see what's going on. So yeah, I mean, so we're definitely seeing that change of people moving, and also on top of that, we're seeing more. It's interesting, we're seeing more sales throughout the day versus just before work, at lunch, after work type of thing, because people have a little more free time to pop around. So yeah, it's definitely been interesting.
That's
It's been a
interesting.
change.
Did I understand correctly? Did you open a new store during all of this?
So no, I didn't open a new store. Actually, about 3 weeks ago, I moved to a new location where we actually expanded to about double the size of where we were before. It was something that was coming, before the pandemic. We're starting to outgrow it, and then finally some new spaces opened up, a new location, and so we did move, and we have expanded our offering. It has felt like opening a new store, to be honest, but. Yeah, so it's definitely been a change, and I'm literally only about 2 weeks into it.
I think you were saying earlier that you definitely are seeing supply chain issues.
Yeah, it's been that's been a really challenge. I moved to this bigger space, and I probably couldn't have picked a worse time. Of course, when I signed the lease on the space, all the vendors told me that we would be out of this supply chain issue by April, and now product is just dribbling in. We'll get product that was supposed to arrive last August, and it'll just show up at our door. And so, I like to try to keep it relatively organized. No one's stuff is coming in, no one's going out the door, but products are coming or not. Products you do want aren't coming. Products that you don't remember are showing up, and it's been quite a wild ride. And a lot of customers luckily have been understanding, but some people are very surprised that we don't have their favorite product or shoe or whatever else it is. So it's been quite a challenge on top of moving. So.
Yeah, I bet. I have twin daughters who, when they were younger, 16, 17, something like that, I had them work in our restaurants, because learning how to deal with customers, both the good parts and the sometimes kind of rough parts, is invaluable, I think, and it has been for them going forward. Luis, you came from Aspen. I don't know the timing exactly, but I think it was pretty close to the pandemic, right?
Actually, it was after the pandemic. I started this role with 5 Point right around the holidays of 2021. So I've been in it now for about 5 months. Yeah, 5.5 months. So I was able to see the impact that the pandemic had on nonprofits being up in Aspen when things shut down, and now being able to reopen for about 3 months, and how much like everybody had to pivot to programming that was virtual. And it was a challenge to get people feel comfortable to go back into indoor spaces. So having seen that and realizing that we had to change the way we worked in nonprofits, and not all nonprofits were able to endure that. I think it gave me an opportunity and realization that I wanted to do something that was more meaningful. And when this opportunity with 5 Point came up, I realized it was way more impactful to the community here in Carbondale. So knowing how the pandemic has made everybody rethink about what they want to do, say every day in their everyday lives, I realized this was an organization that really inspires hope in our community, and has an opportunity to really bring in and showcase the best of what Carbondale has. So I've been excited to do it and bring the festival back in person after a 3-year hiatus. So yeah, it's been we'll say a steep learning curve, but an amazing opportunity, and to have the support of the community, folks like Brion and Tamara and Andrea and Evan, it was really touching to see how important it was to Carbondale. So.
Yeah. How did it, when you started your live event, so it's the first live event in 2 years, presumably, right?
Yep.
Did it go sort of as you thought it would, or were there surprises?
Definitely some surprises. I think there's still, you know, some trepidation with folks returning to a big in-person event, and, you know, filling what's our rec center gets converted into a theater with 750 people. Definitely not everybody, you know, felt that comfort of being in an indoor space, but we did also offer an opportunity for people to see it online after the festival. That was an intentional choice to in order to not discourage people from engaging, but giving folks the option to see something online. And I think because it hadn't happened since 2019, since April of 2019, you know, folks forget. We have this, let's say, pre-COVID memories that people think back and really forget about how things operated prior to the pandemic, or even events like that. So that, I think, definitely took us by surprise in terms of, we had great attendance, but as we come back to recurring events that people are used to, hopefully that we'll see an uptick in the attendance the way it used to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And Tamara, you and I share a little bit of a history in the restaurant world, although we haven't met before, but I read that you never did close. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. We were able to stay open the entire pandemic. I think we were one of, if not the only, one of very few restaurants that did not have to close during the pandemic. And so that was a big thing for keeping us open. I'm sorry, the big thing that kept us open was that we really strove to follow the CDC guidelines and with masks and social distancing. And, you know, we really had to work hand in hand with the Garfield County Public Health. And I really want to thank them, because it was because of their guidance and their information that we were able to stay ahead of the game. And I still, even 2 years into it, have had very few of my staff test positive. And we see about 300, maybe 400 people every single day on a busy day. So that means a lot of people are coming through that potentially could have had COVID, but we stayed open and my staff stayed healthy the entire pandemic.
Yeah, that's great. And as you say, it's kind of unusual. I think it was hard to keep restaurants open.
Yeah, I mean, we had our challenges with keeping a mask mandate. I did work with Andrea with the chamber, trying to, you know, rile up support for other businesses. It was hard. You know, it's a controversial issue. I don't think it should have been. But to me, our results speak for themselves. We kept our staff safe, and our customers were very, they felt safe with us. So we were able to grow confidence with other people believing that we were doing the right thing. And those people today still support us. I mean, you know, we are kind of a hub of Carbondale. As a coffee shop, we have a lot of places to sit. Unfortunately, we were closed down in the dining room for lots of months in between. So people couldn't meet here, but we had still, most of the town still coming in, getting to-go orders and ordering from us. And you know, this was to keep my staff healthy and happy, but it also, I think it trickled down through the rest of the community, because we do depend on the community being just as healthy and happy, so they can come in and keep buying things from us. You know, it's really key that we are connected with the whole community to keep ourselves running, up and running, healthy, happy, safe, and open.
Did you
It
feel like?
was, I
Oh,
was
no,
just
go
going to
ahead.
say, it really was amazing how none of my employees got COVID, even though we were seeing, you know, at times hundreds of people during the day. And as long as we followed the protocols, it seemed like no one got sick until they went on vacation or went away. So that was a real blessing, and it felt really great to feel safe. And after a while, more and more people were coming in. Nobody was really getting sick. So I thought that was really cool. It's good to hear you guys had the same experience.
Yeah.
Did you all feel like your customers were people you knew who were living in the town or visited the town a lot before, or that you had an influx of people from Denver or other places that were trying to get out of sort of the more urban environment?
I mean, for us at the coffee shop, you know, people came to us kind of first on their stop into town and would ask a lot of questions. So we do see a lot of tourists, especially on the weekends, coming from Denver. And in general, they were the toughest group of people to keep mask mandates with and, you know, social distancing because they weren't so used to, I don't know, just taking care of each other, I guess. I'm not sure. But the locals are regulars, are about 80% of our business, except for on the weekends. Like I said, everyone goes out of town. They want to play in the mountains. And so then the Denverites come over here. So we definitely saw a lot. And then there's a lot of people that come through town that, you know, a coffee shop is a great area, a great place to meet people. So if you're looking for jobs, if you're looking for housing, a lot of people come and post on our wall and then just inquire around. It's a really good place to meet a lot of people. So we did get lots of people who were looking to move to Carbondale coming through the coffee shop.
It's interesting.
Yeah, there's a pretty significant uptick in our store where it was very noticeable that people were coming in from out of town to either visit or look to move here or had moved here. I mean, you know, we felt like, you know, I felt like almost every day we had someone come in the store and that was new to town for one of those reasons. And it's been fascinating for sure. And it's one of the reasons I decided to expand and move, because I felt like more and more people are moving to town.
Yeah.
I'll add too, just one piece. We oversee the lodging tax as well. It's a 2% tax. And so we were really seeing an uptick and continuing to see the increase. There's not so much a shoulder season anymore. There's more of just kind of an ebb and flow. And so we were seeing a lot of people and also getting a lot of traffic and calls from people in the Front Range, kind of, you know, at least in their Colorado bubble, they maybe weren't as willing to kind of travel outside of the state, but we were seeing them throughout the state. And again, you know, I remember Tamara was one of the first people I saw like after lockdown, rather than my, you know, daily latte that I would go grab. It was, you know, whole beans in bulk that I could grab and make coffee at home. And it was just really interesting to watch and to even see the license plates driving through town and how that's shifted a little bit over the past 2 years.
Do you feel like a lot of those people were visiting and then left, or did a lot of people move there?
I think it's a mix of both. I'll be really curious to see in the next, you know, 2 to 4 years, if people that purchased housing, if they end up going, you know, back to the East Coast, or if that turns into maybe a second home. But we did see quite a few people that came out and maybe they were seeking Carbondale prior to the pandemic. And then during the pandemic, that kind of sealed the deal for them, if you will. But I think a lot of them, you know, stayed or anticipate coming long term.
Yeah. Which is probably just exacerbating workforce housing issues that you have.
Yes, and Luis could talk about that more in one of the many hats that he wears. But yes, we're seeing it. And it's unique because we are seeing people coming in that perhaps have relocated, they work remotely. So again, they're not filling some of those open positions that are in the area, but they are filling the housing. And, you know, that also puts pressure on transportation, childcare, all of the things that the whole state is very much front of mind. But we are seeing that uptick. And then also people that perhaps have relocated from, you know, Aspen moving further down Valley. We're seeing a lot of residential housing, you know, being occupied in that capacity as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's no secret that, I mean, the pandemic exacerbated that. And from my perspective, being up in Aspen, Picken County, we saw a huge increase. Folks who had second homes already made them their primary home during the pandemic, and then word spread quickly about just, you know, people being able to get out of major cities. So that, yeah, that had an impact, and I think we've seen that just move further through the rest of the valley.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. It's definitely statewide, which is why it was one of the 4 areas that we emphasized this year. What are some of the challenges facing Carbondale's local economy besides housing, which we know is a challenge?
I would probably say most of them do stem from the housing, and it's kind of things that trickle beyond that. You know, I sort of, when I talked to everybody here before, I sort of felt like to a certain extent, I'm worried about a little bit of a brain drain or energy drain or something like that, because of it's so difficult for the younger people to stay in the valley. And those are the people who are starting the cool new businesses and creating the energy and being involved in some events that might have a little bit more energy. And that's what I think one of the things that's great about Carbondale is the fact that we are, you know, a working town. We're not necessarily a resort town. We have a lot of people here in a lot of different stripes of life and different ages and all that. But I do fear that, you know, as I said other time, I do fear that, you know, some of my best employees who are the smartest minds had left because they just couldn't find the housing. And so I think I'm scared for what's going to happen to businesses as we start graying. And you know, are there going to be the new shops, the new fun things, the new businesses, the new energy coming to the town?
Yeah. Tamara?
I mean, I would agree with Brian. It really does stem from the housing crisis. It is hard to hire people right now, especially for, you know, a coffee shop job, which for some people might not be enough of a living wage to keep people around. So sometimes that means people have to get 2 or 3 jobs. We are lucky that in my business, my employees are considered to be tipped employees, but we are lucky enough to pay above much higher than the average tipped employee wage that we're legally required to. But we are dependent on tips from the community in order to pay my staff well. And I'm proud of how much we are able to pay as a coffee shop. But we are so busy and we need more people to come apply. So, I mean, right now I have a lot of high school students, which is great, but once they have to go back to school, we're still busy, and I'll still need some adults around who can handle the workload. That is one of the things, is that since the pandemic, we have been busier than ever. 2021 was a record year for us, and we're still going. We're just riding every high wave we can, but it is you know, potential for burnout for my current employees, because there's not a new crop of people who are moving in who are able to stay and work. And that is the biggest hurdle that I have going forward. I mean, supply chains is another one, like Brian was talking about earlier. I am lucky that I can search the web for all the things we need, but I have special items like compostable. Everything that we do disposable is compostable, and that is a crazy expense to have to do. And you know, we are committed to the sustainability of our coffee shop and our environment. So this is not something that we take lightly, but it is another challenge, is the supply chain.
Yeah. And are you seeing your food costs go up as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I mean, it's skyrocketing. I would say 20% across the board, but certain individual items are a lot harder to get. Like right now, dairy is really hard. And as a coffee shop that relies on milk and cream cheese and yogurts for a lot of our items, it's hard to find. I have to either scour the grocery stores when my suppliers are all out, but I have like 4 different suppliers that I'm constantly checking on. It's a burden. I'm happy to do it. I want to make sure that it's been pretty seamless. I've been lucky enough to find good deals and good vendors and partnerships. And also, you know, a key for me is to be as connected in our community as possible. So we do have a lot of local businesses like bakeries that we source from. And I mean, they're having troubles as well, but we are love working together with them, because when we do well, they do well. When they do well, we do well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with this employee burnout type of thing, I mean, there are two parts of that. One is, we continue to pay more and more wages while rents continue to go up, and everybody's getting pinched, which means you can have less benefits for your employees. Your employees, you're often shorter on employees than you want to be, and so you want to do all these events to tie into the town more to create, and that's, we love having events, but when you have a staff that's working more than they want to, can't really get days off very easily, you don't want to ask them to go out and do a fun event. Even if it's a fun event, it's just more time away from their outdoor activities. And I mean, let's be honest, we all came here, or everybody who works my store at least came here because they love the outdoors. So we're limiting those types of things, and that's too bad.
Yeah, I'll add too, one piece, in addition to the burnout is just, I feel like people are kind of reaching that overwhelm too, whether it's too many visitors or too many cars, or kind of that us versus them with the locals and the tourists and like the dog poop bags. I mean, like there's always something. And one thing that we took advantage of was the Colorado Tourism Office had a program that they implemented, which was the Restart Destinations program. And we were fortunate enough to receive one of those grants, which also included some technical assistance. And we really looked at we have created since then, the Roaring Fork Valley Destination Alliance. And with that, really focusing on championing the value of tourism, because we need, as we've heard on this call, we need other people outside of just our community to support those businesses, but also, this respectful, respectful Roaring Fork. And so just really, being passionate and showing compassion and doing what we can to respect the land. And, we all want to get outside. It was great that we lived in we do live in a community that we can get out and, go for a hike just outside of our front door. But then also, another piece is this crisis management. And whether it's, as you mentioned, Pat, with, the incident in Texas, or, closer to home in regards to the fires and the canyon closure, and all of that affects all of our day-to-day operations as well. And so just really doing what we can to implement this plan. And there'll be more coming out for those that are on this webinar. Stay tuned. This is a big project that we're taking on, but again, to really just help address and alleviate some pressure points in certain areas so we can continue to be our best in Carbondale.
Yeah. And Luis, what do you think?
I mean, we're unfortunately, we're not going to build our way out of this housing crisis anytime soon. I mean, that's the reality. I think we have to get creative as a town, do things like what Telluride did, which is allow people to live out of their vehicles using town-owned property. I mean, the town's looking at everything from increasing the lodging tax, to really facilitating a way for us to build on the land that we've recently been donated. But that's going to take time and effort. And I think to Brian and Tamara's point, I mean, now the increases in inflation isn't really wages. It's tough for wages to keep up with that. And so people that are coming into this area really already come here with jobs that allow them to live in this. So with the bar being set so high now for home purchasing, it's difficult to, say, unless there's more generational wealth that can be passed on, but that still leaves a lot of people out of being able to really participate in our local economy. And I think we have a lot of issues, ahead in the next couple of years to how to figure that out. So,
yeah. Now, one of the things we're seeing both nationally and within the state is there's the same number of job openings as there are unemployed people in the labor force. And so, it feels like that's a combination of skills mismatch and geographic mismatch. And geographic mismatch in turn feels like a lack of housing. We just keep coming back to housing. So one of the programs that we're going to roll out is a incentive program for manufacturers to set up plants in all parts of the state to do manufactured housing. And we're hoping that is at least going to be part of the solution. I think you're right. I think building our way out of a housing problem when you're probably 50,000 units short across the state, that's tough. But that's at least one program that OEDIT is going to be rolling out. And I guess we're almost out of time. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just share a statistic that I thought was really interesting to me. Again, in Carbondale, I kind of see us as this smaller bubble. We've definitely put ourselves on the map and, play with Aspen and Glenwood Springs and really love to partner with them. But Carbondale, again, is a certified creative district, which is a program through OEDIT. Actually, it's the Colorado office of, the Colorado Creative Industries within OEDIT. And one piece that I just thought would be interesting to share is, according to the Creative Vitality Economic Modeling data, our zip code, which is 81623, brought in over $45 million in creative industry earnings in 2020, which, again, kind of going back to the beginning of the pandemic, we had a really strong first quarter. And then as we went through in regards to the pandemic, was only 3 years down as it relates to 2019. And, a lot of creative industry businesses did succeed, including those on this call. Restaurants brought in over 10 million for the year, followed by artists, writers, and performers, which was 6.3 million. And then again, nonprofits. Carbondale is home to a lot of nonprofits and brought in $2.7 million, which was up 22% from 2019. So I think it's really interesting just with those numbers kind of floating out there. Again, this is 2020. We were talking a lot, kind of broad pandemic in 2021, but it's just interesting to see how we as a community can continue to support Carbondale and our industries, including the creative industries, but also just that, again, that value of tourism and people coming in, I think really helps continue to supplement those. Again, going back to the topic of housing, I feel like we have our topic for next year, Evan, dialed in. We could have a whole series on housing, but it's just really unique to kind of see how this all plays out in regards to everything we've talked to today. So thanks, Patrick.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to throw it back to Evan now. This has been fun. It's been great getting to know all of you a little bit. And now I feel like I want to come to Carbondale and go to the coffee shop and actually meet you in person. But Evan.
Thanks, Pat. I, in full disclosure, I need to reveal I live in Carbondale and have for a while, and I feel like I've got a personal connection with everyone on this panel, and I have with so much admiration and reverence for the love that they pour into their work and their organizations and their operations, seen firsthand why a place like Carbondale is unique and special. And I say that because I'm biased. I live downtown and I get to feel the vibrancy in the downtown core, and I get to participate. I wonder if each of you could talk a little bit about either what you've seen or what you're doing or what you've done to identify and include the members of our population that are a bit on the margins, who is being left out, and what are we doing to amplify issues of equity in the workplace, in Carbondale in particular. And I'll just popcorn that out there. Anybody that wants to jump in.
I'll toss that out. I'll throw question an answer. I think for us, really, at least with 5 Point, being able to showcase a diverse series of voices through this last festival program really gave that opportunity for BIPOC, LGBTQ, accessibility impaired individuals to really see themselves in our program and know that they are included and that the outdoors, because it's not just about adventure for us, it's really inspiration and engagement with the outdoors is something that's available to everyone. And so I think knowing that, we're able to create more opportunity for, our audiences that are on the margins. So being able to showcase that through our programming here at the festival, but also through our on the road component, shows that we have coming up in Denver as well, really gives an opportunity for people to see themselves in our program. And it's not just for one, let's say, segment of our population.
And I would add to that, in a crowded space of film festivals, I think you really raised the bar this year. There with so much conversations around diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, well-being, and purpose. I really think that 5 Point has really just amplified that narrative in a profoundly impactful way. And I've said that to you before, that you've curated an amazing season of films this year. Who else would chime in on that question?
Yeah, I'm happy to add too. It's just really important, I think, to just one example as a reminder is that diversity isn't just like male, female. There's so many opportunities to, diversify. So that's one thing we're doing even is just, looking at a matrix with our chamber board. And so there, again, there's so many nonprofits. We have over 40 nonprofits, Patrick, that are members of the chamber, which is pretty exciting. But really just taking a matrix and looking at your board and saying, okay, this is a snapshot of our membership. So how can we ensure that we have all groups represented at this table? And again, just doing what we can in regards to education opportunities. Free events, I think, is one that it's, there's some that definitely are ticketed, but there's also opportunities for like meet and greets and such that are free, that again, it doesn't matter what that paycheck looks like, that everyone is welcome, I think is pretty unique. We just had a pride parade a couple weeks ago, which was super fun. And so Carbondale, it was just exciting to, bring out fun wigs and tutus and sunglasses too, because, it's just really neat to be in a community that you can really express yourself. And I think we see that quite a lot, and hopefully more in the future.
Tamara?
Yeah, so Carbondale is, I feel, very welcoming to everybody. It might not be the case, but I think that we do have lots of chances to make it better. A few years ago, Carbondale Arts did give out little stickers for everyone to put on their windows that was all about all welcome there. That's it, that's the sticker. And it has it, all are welcome in different languages. And coffee shops have always been a place where people of all different stripes and colors are welcome, and they gravitate towards. In Carbondale in particular, we have a lot of Latinos here, and I love that my staff, I have two of my longest running staff members are Latinos, and I do believe that their presence and their excitement for working at Bonfire brings in a lot of people that we wouldn't normally see come into downtown Carbondale, and I also support them behind the scenes. One of my staff members is on the Carbondale Arts Board, and I'm trying to get her into the Latino network. And I do work with Voces de Unidas, which is the local Latino, one of the local networking groups that prioritize Latino leadership in the Valley. And I'm very much want to keep supporting places and people that are about inclusion, because in Carbondale schools, for instance, 50% of our students are Latino, and we don't have as much representation on boards as we need to have, and that is something that I am pushing in my personal life in terms of activism. But we are proud to have as many diverse people on our staff as we can possibly get.
I'll say that you're well represented here in San Francisco. This is my Bonfire mug. That was not intentional. It just happened to be in my bag. That's the one I use. I want to jump to something that you mentioned, and that has to do with the conference that I'm at here in San Francisco, and that is emerging leaders. Pat had mentioned that workforce training is a big part of sort of emerging initiatives. What collectively, what are we all looking at and working on to recruit the next generation of leadership among our workforce, whether it's training or job opportunities? What are you doing, or what would you like to see in our small community?
Well, I'd say a big step that was taken was the recent hire of the superintendent as a Latino male to lead our school board. I think that was a huge step in the right direction. And, you know, for the youth, seeing that, I think will help. But, you know, it's going to come down to having the opportunities to get people back after they've left. And, you know, we don't have nothing against CMC, but it's, you know, having a 4-year university or something that offers, you know, continuing education in the Valley will be very difficult. So a lot of our, you know, high schoolers go away to school and then they come back. But now I know that there's other organizations taking the initiatives to create technical, you know, vocational technical opportunities for them. And hopefully that's something that they can also take advantage and realize that, you know, while the cost of higher education has gone up, it's not something, we'll say, that everybody needs in order to be a leader. So
as a plug for CMC, Colorado Mountain College has really been very responsive, and I really think that this is the moment for community colleges and programs where dual enrollment is possible, where high school students can get some of those college credits and start curating their post-secondary experience. So I will say, that though it may not be a traditional 4-year academic university, so to speak, the opportunities are ever evolving and ever responsive at CMC.
well, yeah, and I know they have. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I know they have, you know, engagement and partnerships now with like University of Denver and other, you know, higher educations, and I know that's through CoVenture and other organizations here locally. So it does give, I think, a lot of opportunity for those youth who want to stay here in the Valley.
And I was just going to add, I am very hopeful too, especially, you know, with as we talk about housing and also workforce and labor shortage, that there's some opportunity too with our college students or even high school students that are dual enrolled that can go out and continue to get certificates in, you know, skilled labor force and be interns for some of these entities that are looking to hire, but are not, you know, able to fill a lot of those positions because of the pay. But, you know, as someone that, you know, perhaps is still in high school and able to live at home, that could, you know, come in and be an intern and still, you know, perhaps be a paid intern. I think that that's a huge opportunity. So I'm really hopeful that that's something that we as a business community can continue to move and push that forward.
I would love to ask Pat, if you could talk a little bit about what are the trends that you're seeing in rural Colorado and what is giving you hope about re-emerging and re-energizing sort of the local economies, hyper-local economies across rural Colorado?
Well, and as you know, rural Colorado is not a monolith. There's a lot of difference depending on region and geography. We are seeing some parts of the state really rebound, including, as we've been talking about, Carbondale, and but they're also the parts of the state that are feeling the workforce and housing pressure the most. They're also feeling childcare pressure just like everywhere else. And so that's another problem that we've been working on. There are other places, Evan, we call them just transition, and I'm not sure that's a great name. I'm not even sure where it came from, but it's former extraction communities. So coal, other kinds of mining, old oil and gas, where they are just replacing industry. That's hard. It's a little bit different if you had an area where you had good industry or you had tourism or whatnot, and it fell off, but now it's coming back again. And as long as you have the entrepreneurs or the business leaders or whoever who have hung in there, or new ones that have come in to start businesses within those industries, it works pretty well. But if you're in a part of the state where an industry is simply gone and you don't have trained workforce for other industries, and you're trying to convince industry from either within the state in the Front Range or somewhere else, or from out of the state to move into those parts of the state, it's difficult. It's just kind of chicken and egg thing, because they're like, well, it's beautiful, but there's no housing, there's no workforce. So like, how are we going to locate something there? So we've got now around $20 million just towards those communities, which hopefully we're going to find some successes in how to activate them. And the last thing I would say is Andrea's comment about certificates and Luis's comments about educational needs they're just spot on, because what we found, and I think you all know this, is since I was a kid, there's been such an emphasis on go to get a 4-year degree. And that's great, but still a minority of people get a 4-year degree. And we really, I think, have taken the focus off of the rest of the population that have incredibly good skill set, aptitudes and possibilities, but didn't really have a place to go for training and job creation. So I think the more the state puts emphasis on those programs, I think that's going to benefit both rural and urban parts of the state.
I am thrilled to be a part of a new group of people, and they have decided to call it the Colorado River Valley Economic Development Partnership. And I've invited representatives, regional reps from DOLA and OEDIT, the SBDC, the AGNC, all of the town managers from Parachute, Battlement, and Rifle and Silt, Newcastle, Glenwood Springs, all to convene specifically on what you're describing around how do we bring emerging industries and growth opportunities, business development and economic development opportunities to places that, quite frankly, the oil and gas industry is not coming back. And so we're going to be convening starting in June, and we're really excited and looking forward to what comes out of some of those initiatives. And I know that there are other similar initiatives that have already well underway across the state. And so really excited about pursuing some of that.
Yeah, great. That's great.
We are just about out of time. I could clearly go on for another hour with all of you. But before we close, I do want to say this was a lot of fun for me in particular. I cannot express my respect enough for all of you. I'm deeply grateful to be part of a community. I think if I had to put my finger on the special sauce that is Carbondale, it is the love and respect and admiration and appreciation and collaboration that is just sort of intrinsic in the fabric of our community. And the fact that you have made that part of your business model. When we had the opportunity to convene before this event, we were all just sort of talking about what we were going to talk about. You all just spent a lot of time focused on making sure that everyone that you come into contact with felt like they belonged. And Luis, at the 5 Point Festival that you just brought us all back to, Tamara, you're just a part of everything in the community. You're sort of the glue that keeps us all together. Brion, you're just such a hub, and probably more so now that you're in more of a central location where everybody's just gonna be walking by your door every day, next to the new city market. And Andrea, obviously you're pulling all of these business leaders together in ways that really enrich them personally and professionally and their teams. And I'm so honored to be part of the community where all of you are growing and thriving and continuing to evolve the local narrative. And Director Meyers, I'm so grateful that you were willing to take the time to have a conversation with little Carbondale. And I'll just say to our viewers, thank you for joining the Hearst Community Initiative Town Hall Speaker Series. This presentation was the 4th of 8 webinar events broadcasting every 2 weeks from April through July. In 2 weeks on Wednesday, June 8th from 5 to 6 p.m. Mountain Time, our 5th event in this series will feature a discussion on criminal justice reform focused on restorative justice, featuring Tony Hershey from the 9th Judicial District Attorney's Office, Deb Witzel from Colorado's 20th Judicial District, Mary Beth Bowling from Youth Zone, Alice Price from the Center for Restorative Practices, and that will be moderated by my very good friend Douglas Wood, who's the Executive Director of the Aspen Institute's Criminal Justice Reform Initiative. Thanks again to Velasco Language Services for your commitment to translating important information to our esteemed Spanish-speaking community throughout the region. Very special thanks to Alex Garcia Bernal and Garfield County Libraries for generously Zoom hosting this series, as well as co-sponsors Aspen Public Radio, Carbondale branch of the Garfield County Libraries, and Carbondale Chamber of Commerce. To you, our participating viewers, you are of course always invited to check out upcoming events and ongoing projects of the Aspen Institute's Hearst Community Initiative at aspen2parachute.org. That's Aspen, the number 2, parachute.org. I'm Evan Zislis, Director of Community Engagement for the Aspen Institute's Hearst Community Initiative. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and I look forward to connecting with you at the same time in 2 weeks. Thanks again.